Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'm going to take a look at Boris Johnson's rambling speech on whatever seemed to come into his head as he was writing it, but was supposed to be announcing a big reform for housing. This speech had everything: lies about his past, lies about the future, a policy that not even a child could believe, and a policy that would work against his own political interests, even if the plausible bits could ever be made to work. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So during this 1 hour speech on housing, Thursday, where Johnson talked about bananas at one point and olives, the Prime Minister told a few fibs. One lie of interest was claiming to have built 100,000 affordable homes as Mayor of London. I did that, he said. It's not quite true though, is it? During his time as Mayor, a bit over 90,000 affordable homes were actually built in London. Not quite the 100,000, but rounding off, whatever. But if he'd have said that nearly 100,000 affordable homes were built whilst he was Mayor of London, that would technically be true. And that's your normal political deception there, because it misleads, but it's factually accurate. But why would it be misleading? Well, because 94,000 affordable homes were built in London during his time as Mayor, from 2008 to 2016. But over 2/3 of them were from a scheme introduced by the Labour government, which had nothing to do with Johnson. It wasn't even a London thing, it was a national programme. And when you consider that, only the first 2 years of Johnson's mayorship were under Labour. The other 6 were under the Conservatives. You may want to ask yourself, so hang on a minute, how come 2/3 of all the affordable homes built in London during your time as Mayor were as a result of the Labour government, who were only in power for a quarter of the time you were Mayor? It's almost like the Tories, including Johnson, massively scaled back the building of affordable homes, isn't it? But I'm not going to spend all video going over the lies. Johnson lies. We know he lies. He doesn't even tell convincing lies. He doesn't care anymore. He's tried to claim credit for all sorts of policies. He's tried to claim credit for his party introducing the minimum wage when that was Labour. He tried to claim credit for introducing free bus travel for pensioners when that was Labour too. He's tried claiming credit for policies that were enacted when he was a schoolboy, decades before even becoming a politician. But I mention this lie because it should be a lesson to Labour. Johnson is telling these lies because he understands the power of being able to claim past success as a credential for future promises to be believed. Well, Labour don't need to lie about their past achievements. They have some impressive ones, including achievements that Johnson's trying to claim credit for. They would do well to understand this and plug away at their past achievements much more. They have been doing a bit of it, I have to say, of late, but they need to do a lot more. But when it comes to the policies he did announce, we don't need to just dismiss them because he lies, and he's probably lying again. Even if he weren't a well-known liar, I think you'd still raise an eyebrow because what he has announced is in parts impossible and politically contradictory. The impossible, first of all, he claims that he's going to make it easier for people to be able to buy a home. He went as far as saying people on benefits will be able to do this. Now here's the thing, you announce a policy like that, and it's not impossible, sort of. When I've been daydreaming of my socialist utopia, when everyone agrees that I should just be installed as ruler of the world, I've often thought how great it would be if the government had a sort of hire purchase arrangement for homes. You come of age, you leave education, whenever that is, you get your job, you're going to work, you need your own home. The government has one for you. There you go, in you go, move in. You effectively pay rent on it, just like with a council house, only this would be a national scheme. If you need to move for a different job, no problem. You just move out where you need to. We'll take possession of that home again, and you go for the home, you get a home in the place you've moved to for your work. Eventually, you've paid enough into the system that the home is given to you as your property, right? You pay in a certain amount over your life, over your working life. Once you've reached a certain amount, that's it, it's yours. It's a system that guarantees everyone a home and means that everyone can eventually own their home so they don't have to worry about rent in their retirement. This is not what Boris Johnson is talking about or anything like it. He's not talking about a national reform of housing. He's talking about just letting people on benefits get a mortgage. But here's the thing, the people who have the houses to sell don't want to sell under those conditions. And the people who will be lending the money, the banks, don't want to give mortgages under those conditions. And Boris Johnson didn't even bother to try and talk to either of these groups and say, what can we do to make this work? And there are a few other small problems with this as well. First, people on benefits can't afford to pay the bills. In fact, even before he and Sunak tanked our economy, people on benefits still struggled. That's why they're on benefits. And remember, for those equating benefits with being unemployed, the vast majority of people on benefits are in work. People struggling on benefits are not going to be able to save up the deposit needed for a mortgage. The second problem is that if somehow these people did have the deposit for a mortgage, they would not be allowed benefits. You are excluded from universal credit if you have savings of £16,000 or more. And you're not getting a mortgage on benefits with a deposit less than that in most parts of the country. I mean, maybe you could afford a hovel in downtown Middlesbrough. The third problem is that what Johnson would appear to be talking about is riskier lending. Subprime mortgages is the term. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Isn't that what caused the global crash in 2008? Yes, that global crash that the Tories tried to blame Labour for, even though the Tories at the time argued against the banking regulations that Labour brought in. Without them, it would have been much worse. Well, the Tories are back in now and talking about creating the very conditions that caused that crash. The main saving grace being that Johnson is too distracted to actually do anything. This is why his speeches are a combination of promises for the future and claiming credit for what other people have done, because he's got no achievements of his own. And the fourth problem is that his plan involves making housing associations sell their houses to tenants who can get a mortgage. This is not a new idea. It was tried when David Cameron was Prime Minister. The government were told, yeah, you could do this, but you would have to take on the debts of these associations in order to make it work. And they went, no. Because although it's easy to tell other people what to do, you know how Boris Johnson goes around to businesses saying, well, just employ more people. Oh, you've got a problem with not enough workers? Well, just find some. Oh, you've got a problem selling to Europe? Well, just deal with it. You know, easy to say to other people that they should do this thing. To foreign businesses, just invest more in the country and it'll all be fine. But if they have to have any direct involvement themselves, they're not really interested. And Boris Johnson is way lazier and has more of an aversion to responsibility than David Cameron. But the general policy of more home ownership is also contradictory for the Tories. Because if we forget about the details of his plan being impossible for a moment, because it is possible to come up with a plan for expanded home ownership that could work. The problem is that it would meet political resistance in the Conservative Party. Because on the one hand, Conservatives love home ownership. Because people who own their own homes are way more likely to vote Conservative. This is why we've seen shifts in voting behaviour in some towns. Like with the fall of seats in the Red Wall in 2019, for example, most of them fell, of course, to this weird combination of circumstances that surrounded that election. But some were headed that way anyway. Hartlepool, for example, it only just voted Labour in 2019, thanks to the Brexit Party nicking Tory votes, but then it flipped to the Tories last year in the by-election. But it had been going Tories for years, and the council had already flipped a few years ago. And I've explained this before, but essentially what you see here is some of these knackered northern towns where they're younger people, a lot of them going to university, then they move away for jobs because there's nothing back home. So you end up with a higher proportion of the homeowners and the elderly left behind. Well, these are more likely to vote Conservative. So you shift. It's not like individual people changing their voting habits so much as just a general shift in demographics. And the Conservatives are well aware of this. They know that traditional Labour supporters are cramming themselves into the cities. There's only so many MPs there. These old, knackered industrial towns are theirs to take. They have to keep them old and knackered, mind you. They have to keep them knackered. But they know about this. You know, so they like to push higher rates of home ownership, even if it means seeding the odd economic crash now and then because it relies on like risky lending. And presumably they just hope these crashes hit when Labour in power, so they get the benefits of the policy but get to blame the consequences on their opponents. Now, there's a problem with this. Because yes, they can make lending riskier, but you still need the physical homes for people to buy. That means you need to build more of these homes. And you have to build more affordable homes in order for people to get that mortgage. This contradicts Conservative interests. Because first of all, it means making developers build more affordable houses. Well, they don't like doing that. And they pay the Conservatives a lot of money so they don't have to. Secondly, it means massively ramping up building programmes in general. Several issues with this. First of all, the cost of building materials is going through the roof, if you'll pardon the expression, partly down to Brexit. Second, we struggle to get the workers needed for such a programme, entirely down to Brexit. Third, people who already own their own home don't want to see more houses built near them. Aside from any subjective concerns, they don't want the disruption and they don't want the value of their house to stop going up. You know, it's, oh, I've got my house, I'm all right. No, you can't have any houses. You go somewhere else. You go over there, go to the next village and build an house. And this NIMBY attitude is very pervasive in a lot of traditional Conservative constituencies, which means that a lot of Conservative MPs will be dead against it. So what we got from Johnson was essentially another Jam Tomorrow speech. The policy announcements, such as they were, are impossible to achieve as he has stated them, and politically bothersome for him if he asks someone more competent to come up with a credible plan. His authority is already hobbled. The idea of doing something that a lot of Tory MPs would be against, I mean, long story short, none of this is going to become a reality. Not at all. How could it? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.